As Matt mentioned, I'm Cheryl Holmes, the Director of E-Learning at AAPA. I've been in AAPA for about 18 years. Prior to that, I was in federal law enforcement for a number of years, but I won't say how many because you guys have started doing the math. And all right. And this is our second learning management system that we've been involved with creating. But even prior to that, we had another online kind of test thing that we were doing. And when I get into talking about Learning Central, I will give you a little bit more background about how far we've come.
All right. Let me do a little. Well, I'll do the obligatory background on our organization later. But so we were asked to talk a little bit about building your LMS team or hiring the right LMS administrator. And in full disclosure, Cheryl is our director of e-learning, is right now a one-woman show that is amazing, and you'll see all the stuff that we're involved in. We'll talk about, and you'll get a sense of the scope of what she's responsible for at the moment and why we need more help. But we are currently hiring for a program associate to support Cheryl and work with our team on Learning Central. So we're in the midst of this effort to hire, and anyone who's ever gone through the hiring process before knows that it's an important thing you have to do right. It can really bog down your organization and your productivity, both when you have a vacant seat, but also if you get the wrong person in the seat and can cause downstream problems. So I thought it would be appropriate to start off this talk with a quick analogy, and many of you might have heard this one, but it set with me. I actually heard it in a management center training. If anyone's ever looking for a really good resource for just management training, there's a group called the Management Center. They're in the DC area here, but they do some great local in-person trainings for basically anyone on your team who's a manager. And one of the things that they were talking about was time management. So the way this analogy goes, it's a teacher who's on the first day of class, got a full classroom, and one of the concepts that he wants to try to help his students understand as they embark on a really long, complicated syllabus with lots of small and big tasks is how to be better, more effective at managing their time. So he has these two mason jars, and in the first mason jar, he asks one of his students to come up, and he's got a pile of rocks, a pile of big rocks, a pile of pebbles, a pile of sand, and a thing of water. And he asks he asked the student to put in the big rocks, and the student puts the big rocks, and he asks the class, he says, "Okay, is this jar full?" And everyone in the classroom says, "Yep, it's full." And he says, "Okay, now add the pebbles." And he adds the pebbles, and the pebbles all trickle down around the big rocks, and they settle down nicely into the jar. And then he asks the class, is the jar full? And the class responds, "Yes, it's full." And then he says, "Okay, now take the sand and dump it in." And of course, the sand trickles down, fills all the empty spaces. And he asks the class, he says, "Okay, is this jar full now?" And the class, of course, says, "Yes, of course it's full." But maybe they're catching on at this point. So one person says, "No way, it's not full. You're going to add that water to that jar." So he says, "Yes, I am," and he adds the water. And so now he asks the class, is the jar full? And of course, the class now says, "Yes, it's completely full. You can't fit anything else in there." And then he says, "Okay, so what am I trying to teach you with this exercise?" And somebody raises their hand and says that you can always add more stuff to your day if you just pack it in there more tightly. And of course, the teacher says, "No, that's not quite it. Really, the key here is that if you deal with your biggest, most important, most daunting tasks first, the smaller, less challenging, easier things will fall into place." When you look at kind of the big things that we have to get done and the work that we're all doing, it might be producing our annual conference. It might be, launching a new learning management system. It sounds like a couple of us have had to do recently. Or in another case for us, one that maybe you don't think about as much, is hiring. Hiring is one of those really big rocks. And if you aren't effective in getting that big rock out of the way, you won't be able to be as successful in fitting all the other stuff in and being as productive and effective as you can be. So I just wanted to set the tone with that. Again, we are, again, full disclosure, we've been recruiting for this position for probably about 5 months now, something like that, maybe even a little bit longer. And we did not effectively treat it like a big rock. We let other things come in the way, and we've been trying to figure out how we can jam this thing in there, but we've got all the smaller stuff done. And, at the end of the day, what that means is we've got, I will say, a high performing, strong results, learning management system. We're producing really good experiences for our learners, always room for improvement. We can talk about those too. But, business has continued and we've had good continuity of operations, and, there, with a few blips along the way, our users are generally satisfied and we're still growing. But we, of course, are doing that at the expense primarily of Cheryl's well-being, and she's doing okay, guys. But
well-being is not just for vets.
No, well-being is important. Burnout is a real thing for everyone. So we really need to re-engage and reinvigorate our own effort. And it's interesting, this presentation became a way for us to figure out, okay, what should we be doing differently in our approach here? And now we're firmly committed to getting this done. I also don't think anyone signed any non-solicitation clauses when they walked in the room today. So if you are interested in a new position, I'd be happy to talk with you about that. All right. Okay, so I'll do the obligatory overview of AAPA. So I've been at AAPA for about 13 years, started working with Cheryl probably a year after I got into AAPA. So we've been working together, have a long rapport. We're about a little under 100 staff members. The PA profession, we're about 131,000 strong. The profession has doubled in size every decade for like the last 4 decades. So we are, and I'll say we, as a staff who work for the Academy, are lucky that we get to work for a growing and sort of critical profession. But healthcare in America is lucky because PAs are a really affordable solution to a lot of medical services needs in the healthcare system. So really big membership that we're catering to. Hugely diverse population. We've got PAs in every specialty and setting. There are PAs in interventional radiology. So Elizabeth knows, she's probably got some using her LMS as well. But PAs literally in every specialty you can think of, also every setting, and they have a whole career spectrum that they're going through. Our profession, given the growth, our median age is like 33, I think, 34, something like that. And it goes down like every year because we're growing so fast. So we're catering to an audience that is diverse. We have some folks who would rather do anything other than get on a computer to do their continuing education, and we've got folks that wouldn't think of any other way to do it. So we're trying to meet the needs of both of those sets of individuals, and again, wide set of educational needs. I put up this slide just to kind of give you guys a sense of some of the things that we are doing. Our team, we've got about 10 folks on the AAPA's education and quality team. We're sort of rebranding ourselves as the CPD team, so continuing professional development, trying to think a little bit broader than continuing medical education, which is sort of the more formal component of CPD in our world. We do a lot of programmatic stuff. We've got live and on-demand CMEs. So we have an annual conference. We have several smaller specialty conferences. We also do some national initiatives where we're trying to kind of centralize different resources around topics like obesity, diabetes, the opioid crisis, and really motivate and sort of mobilize the profession to become change agents and hopefully make an impact on a national scale with some of those bigger national health priorities. And of course, we see CME and CPD as a central component to those initiatives. They include advocacy and communications and other stuff as well. We have a journal, just like SIR, one of our most popular CME activities in Learning Central every single month, without fail, is the CME that's associated with the Journal of AAPA. And then outside of the programmatic stuff, we've got some enabling functions that we have to take on too. We have an accreditation arm that basically, we own the AAPA Category 1 CME credit system. So for all of you that have to deal with CE in your systems, we're well versed in how to make that work. We've got three different credit types in our system at the moment. So we sort of review and approve things on that side. We've also got a group that focuses on Learning Central, our LMS. Cheryl's going to talk more about that in a second. We have a group that focuses on continuous assessment. So that's everything from sort of the product management, analysis, and reporting from a business standpoint of how things are doing, but also the needs assessments that go into formulating how we build activities, what needs we're trying to address, as well as outcomes assessment and how we're evaluating how effective we're being. So you can imagine a lot of what our continuous assessment team does feeds into Learning Central LMS as well. And then we have to fund all this stuff. So while we're about 50-50 things that are supported by educational grants, and the other half are supported by tuition registration fees. And I'll let Cheryl talk a little bit about Learning Central.
So before Learning Central, our journal was one of our most popular CMEs. So it was a paper journal that it was a post-test in the back. So folks would complete this post-test, tear out the post-test, they would mail it to us, and then we would mail them a certificate, right? So that's when I first started at AAPA, and I'm sort of piles and piles of paper, and I was like, what in the world is this? So Daniel and I, one of our first collaborations, I think, was when we decided, well, hey, this Japa post test needs to be an online kind of thing. We weren't into the LMS thing quite yet, but it was like an online post test thing where they could go and take their post test online, get their certificate, and we didn't have to mail them anything back. Okay. So real cool, right? So something that said, I need to be there just a little bit longer because I know it's still a better way that we can do this, right? Hence the reason why I've been here 18 years, because now we've gone to our second LMS and we're so excited about it. And I can't wait to see what's on the roadmap going forward.
No, we'll talk a little bit about, so the specific team that works on Learning Central, there are really 3 individuals who are working with CourseStage in some capacity. And I'll say if we were to like split that percentage-wise, it's like 95% Cheryl, and then like 5% someone, 5% for 2 other folks that are sort of managing other aspects. So not a huge team that's working on this. And again, we're trying to add that. We have a vacant position that I mentioned earlier. And we have lots of cross-departmental stakeholders, everyone from our membership team to our advocacy team who creates content for Learning Central to, our accounting team that we have to interface with and tell them why all this money is coming in all the time. So a lot of folks that touch Learning Central in different ways. So we had to kind of be cognizant of all that. And while again, a lot of the work, day-to-day work with Learning Central is, building activities, providing customer service, there's also that internal management skill set that people need as well. All right, so we're going to try to be interactive, maybe with you all on the line as well. So I wanted to get a sense, since we're supposed to be sharing here, how many people are on your collective team? So I'm imagining most of you guys work on an education-like team. So who here? How many people? Let's do it this way. How many people you have? Let's say 5 or more people on your team. Okay, so it looks like 3 or 4. How many people have, say, 4 or fewer? Okay, 3 people in the 4 or fewer. How many about 2 people? Okay, and anyone a solo shop that's just a one woman or man show in their learning management system? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think the takeaway here is, while it sounds like there are some people between maybe 2 and 5, maybe a few more than that for some of you. We have limited resources when we work on things like this, so we have to make sure we have the right people with the right skill sets, the right competencies, the right motivations, the right they're fulfilled by the right things to be effective in these roles. So what we wanted to do with you all today, and again we're going to try to be interactive about this, is talk a little bit about the characteristics and traits that the ideal LMS administrator will have. And we've created our job description and we've cross-referenced this afterwards after we get some feedback for you. So just start yelling them out. When you think about the ideal LMS administrator, particularly in the Web Courseworks CourseStage LMS, what kind of characteristics or traits do you guys think would help them be successful? Think about yourselves. I mean, you're all in it. Curiosity, that's a good one. Resilience, that's an important one for sure. Thick-skinned, okay, yeah. Thick-skinned, that's an important one, yeah. Yep, right, Cheryl, yeah. Communicative, okay. A problem solver, yep, I think that's key for sure. Patience, for sure, yes. Yes, you have to be patient. We added that one and sort of looked at each other and chuckled when we added it, because yes, you have to be patient in this role. What else? What else would you guys look for if you're hiring, if you're trying to evaluate somebody? What are those? You're trying to think through your job description. What kind of things do you want to see? Determined. Okay. Flexible. Okay. Innovative. Okay. Great.
Familiar with a lot of platforms.
Okay. Familiarity with a lot of different platforms, technical platforms. Okay. Yeah, we're even if someone is going to primarily be responsible for the LMS, they probably are touching, the association management system or the content management system too, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. Okay. What else? Any others? Technology savvy. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk later about how best to evaluate for that. I think that's a tricky one, but I agree that's important. All right. Anything else come to mind of ideal characteristics, traits? Independent. Yep. Okay. All right, I think you guys hit most of our list, so we'll flip over here and see what you got that we missed, or that we missed that you got.
In my opinion, tech savvy is a big one. Sometimes we don't think so, but I'm just going to say, working with two learning management systems, I never thought I would understand what a GUID was. And just, just to be tech savvy is really good, because I think about when you're being tech savvy, you're not only just doing what you need to do with that system, but you're kind of thinking beyond that. How can we make this more innovative? How can you're thinking about those things. So I'm trying to get two people for the price of one actually with this, because they're thinking about what they need to do. Patience is so true. And I'm picking out my favorite ones from this list. I just so you know. So patience is like key in my opinion, because some days I do want to throw my PC out the window, but I know I can't do that. So I think patience is very good. Flexible, creative, all those things are great. My favorite one ever is detail oriented. Okay, because even though we have our subject matter experts that's churning out this stuff, we have reviewers reviewing things, we have all that going on. Sometimes by the time it gets to that LMS, it could still be one. What they tell me, yeah, they tell me there's green M&Ms now, so I'd have to say maybe there's one blue M&M in there. So you're going to find stuff. So I don't like I just don't like the cut and paste thing. You just cutting and pasted in there. I read this stuff. I have earned so many hours of CME that it's right. Effective with project management. I must admit, and at AAPA, we struggle just a little bit with project management, because it's kind of hard to really manage a project like a true project manager if you're actually doing the work. So just to have just part of that, I mean, maybe the to-do list, to check off list, the timelines, the schedules, maybe we can start little, and then build big on the project management part of this. Oh man, talking about working well with others, I think that's also key, because in the position that we're hiring for, you also have like a CME tech line that you email that you have to respond to. We like for them to be able to respond to that email without us having to submit a ticket to Web Courseworks. We want to be able to actually be the first line there to say, hey, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. Then we have to be involved with our internal folks as well. Our customer care team, I always say I appreciate them, because they are in the front line for us. They're the ones who actually answer all the phone calls of some of the people that say, oh, the JAPA post test expired 2 minutes before that it was supposed to, but you had it online for 365 days. I'm not quite sure why you waited until the last 2 minutes to do it. But, so our customer care team is on the front line for that. So we appreciate that. So this LMS person is, in my opinion, just have to be an all around kind of person that can deal with different kind of people, different kind of situations, and different issues, and not lose their mind.
Yeah, I think that I added this one, so I want to hit it too. So empathetic and customer focused. If we just only recruit for people that are tech savvy and are really at home, with their head down and working in a system, you might lose sight of how important that piece of this is. But you really need that sort of duality there. You need the people who are both comfortable in the systems, but can also put themselves in the shoes of the person who might not be as comfortable with the systems, and have some of that empathy. Empathy is important in everything, but even in this type of role, I think it's critical. All right. Okay. So we talked about sort of characteristics and traits, and we've got a nice mental image brewing here of what we'd like to see in an LMS administrator. So what qualifications would you guys look for? I mean, obviously this could depend on what your gap is in your team. If you need a leader, or if you need an executor, or whatever level you're looking for. But what qualifications? And I'm talking like things like years of experience, or educational formal training, things like that. What would you look for in terms of qualifications? What are some of your qualifications?
I would say experience. I would say at least 2 years of experience.
Okay, so at least 2 years of experience?
I would.
And would you categorize that as like 2 years of experience with an LMS, or? Okay, so 2 years specifically with an LMS? Okay. Okay, yep. We always start with the ideal, right? Then you trim away at the edges to find an actual practical fit.
Yeah, ideally someone who has taught in person as well as online education.
Okay, so someone who has taught in person and online, so has some experience with education in the different sort of formats. Okay. Okay.
Customer service background.
A customer service background. Okay, I think that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I think we kind of struggle with is, sometimes I think it could be an entry-level person with the right aptitude. So I've sort of, in some sense, should we rule out people that don't have the 2 years experience? On the other hand, I'd love to see the ideal person who has 2 years of experience, right? So that's an interesting kind of.
There's also something to be said for molding an employee to what you
Yep.
want instead of coming in thinking that they know everything. This is how
Exactly.
it's made.
Yeah. So you might want to build them in your own, train them on your own systems, and not have a lot of baggage that comes along with it. I mean, who knows what kind of LMS they were on before, right? Who knows if it's going to be transferable at all? Okay. Any other qualifications that you guys think of? And don't worry, we've got a list if you're burnt out.
Maybe you would take away the 2 years LMS experience and maybe have 2 years education experience.
That's an interesting perspective.
Instead of, in person and LMS, or maybe just education in general. Maybe it's a teacher.
Yeah.
That's just sick of kids.
So really grounding in good educational theory and experience would be potentially helpful. Okay.
How do you learn?
Yeah. Yeah, we've looked at this in kind of a couple different ways. On the one hand, LMS experience would be great. Experience with systems generally would maybe be a proxy for experience in an LMS. In our world, having some experience with healthcare is an asset. Understanding medical terminology has some benefits. Go for it. We also, sort of another area of experience that we look for is, do they have any experience with CME, like actual formal credit systems, and some of the nuances that might be in place there. So there's a lot of different ways that you could slice that, obviously, depending on what your own organization focus is, but kind of that subject matter expertise versus system expertise is something that you probably need to balance, because it's going to be rare that you find somebody that has all those things.
I guess at the end of the day, it's a question of what can you teach them?
Yeah.
What can't you teach them? If they
Yep.
have a proven track record of success and working well with others,
yep,
that's something you can't teach someone.
Yeah. So what can you teach them versus what can't you teach them, and maybe look for those things that you don't have the time or energy to teach them, and where they've got gaps, look for things that you can maybe address yourselves. As educators, we like to call ourselves educators. We might think that we could teach anybody anything, but that's not always the case. And you certainly want somebody to come in with some sort of baseline.
Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about qualifications, there again, we thought, should we require them to have a bachelor's degree? Should we look at their GPA as an indicator? I have one of my teammates, she truly believes if they have a high GPA, that means they're very detail oriented.
I would have never got hired, so.
And that's what she said about you, I heard. Yeah, right?
She said that I'm not detail oriented.
Right. Right. So should they have a master's degree, any formal instructional design training, formal project management training? When I look at all of these things here for the education and training piece of it, I still wonder, is this going to be an entry-level position, or are we going to really bang out these bucks for someone with qualifications like that? When we talk about the experience, in the job description that we have out now, we have 2 to 3 years experience, I think. And we're thinking about maybe changing that just a little bit, maybe lowering the years of, the years of experience. Prior experience with LMS, I think I heard that mentioned. In my opinion, I think that might be a good one, because if you come in with just a little bit prior experience with an LMS, then you might not leave us so fast when things just not going your way, So you're already, prone for what could be the good side to the LMS and what could be the bad side. You're already ready. Experience with CME, like when I was looking at the applications, my 3 things in my head I was really looking for: the LMS, the CME, the healthcare. Right? If I could get these things, I'm like, ooh, I still Google some of these health terms myself, So it's like, if I can have a person that just had a little bit, maybe knowledge background about those things, or is okay with Googling some of these things because you're in the field and you just want to maybe I should Google this and see if this is true, because sometimes the spelling of these words look real funny. So, I mean, I'm okay with Google, professional memberships and things like that. I mean, would this make our person a rock star when we're hiring for this position? John?
Do associations recruit within like academic online communities, like community colleges that might have an online program? Is that a way to go?
I'm not good at repeating the question.
So John's asking if associations typically recruit from, I think maybe local colleges or community colleges, online programs, things of that nature. And it's interesting. We had this position that we're currently recruiting for posted on the Alliance for Continuing Education and the Health Professions, which is very specific to our CME industry. ASAE, which is specific to the association industry. Indeed, which is specific to nothing. And we got a huge mix. We didn't go down the road of posting on like ATD and some of the other training associations. But that was actually one of the things we said, look, we're not getting any actual entry-level candidates here, and we think we could teach them. So how can we get to those folks? And we are now going back to the drawing board with our HR team, and we're going to post at like 8 of the local universities. We've had really good luck recruiting interns from those types of organizations and those types of universities and colleges. So we do think that will help us get people that are, motivated. I hear it's hard to get a job these days, fresh out of college. So hopefully we'll get somebody that's, got the right aptitude, but maybe not the experience component. We can help them get to where they need to be. So, all right. Okay, so we wanted to share, so this is all of those previous exercises, maybe just give you or us some things to think about in terms of developing that job description, kind of getting the vision of what you want this person to look like. We also just jotted down here some of the different recruitment and hiring tips that we employ that you may have other ideas, and we'd love to hear them because again we're still looking to find that right person. So but here's some things that we do. So first and foremost, job descriptions can be super boring. So I put on my best infomercial hat and tried to write this like it was an infomercial. So I'll let you guys read that, but yeah, basically, yeah. This is your chance. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to go there. There's a lot of ones, but I'm not going to go there. Okay, so but the point here is just make it compelling, right? You want to stand out from the crowd. You want them to know that you're not a drab organization to work with, that, this can be, an engaging area to work in. And this is one way to appeal to those right people, It's more than just those qualifications and the specific job tasks that they want to see. They want to get a little sense of what the culture is like, and you can convey that in a job description. Interviewing in stages. We typically do interviews in 3 stages at the moment. We might even add a 4th, we'll see. But we do phone screens. We do department lead and direct supervisor. So typically the first interview where someone will come in person for us will be a sit down with Cheryl and I, and we'll meet with them. And then we actually bring them back if people make sort of that final cut for a full team meet and greet. So we try to foster a culture of collaboration on our education team, and we do have to work together in so many different ways that we want everybody to have a chance on our team to signal red flags or get to know someone a little bit before we make an offer and bring them onto the team. So that sort of stepwise process has been pretty good at making sure we don't get the wrong person. One thing that we're going to improve is really kind of building a kind of more structured approach to each of these steps. With I think interview guides is a tool that we've used in the past, but Cheryl is much more scripted through the interview guide, and I'm much more on a tangent, asking random questions that may or may not get to where we want to be. So there's a balance there, but I do think not detail-oriented. Yes, yes, other things, not detail-oriented. So I think if you're going to do this interviewing in stages, if you start at the outset and think, okay, what are the types of things we want to assess for at these different stages, you can really build your model so that it then doesn't take as long to have those interviews and to get prepped for them. You're already prepared. You've already got the types of questions you want. And of course, there's going to be some specific things that specific candidates bring that you want to drill in more than others, but really being sort of more structured in that approach. It's consistent. It's frankly, I think, provides a fairer process for your candidates. You're not likely to be sort of swayed in one way or another by something that someone might bring. So interviewing in stages and kind of adding some structure with good structured questions for each of those stages is a good tip. Job simulations. This is one that, again, that management center training I was talking about before, they offered this up as a suggestion, and maybe is a good way to figure out if someone is actually tech savvy. Sit them down in front of your LMS, give them an SOP, see if they can get through it. So what we've done is a combination of different tasks, like pretty I would say relatively low-level tasks that they'd be asked to do, but we give them a sample email and ask them to, how they would respond. And, you get a real sense, particularly of someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience, of, how formal are they? What is their tone like in responding to an email? Are they thinking about the right things? How is their customer service? Even just in a written response, you can deduce a lot of that and how they would approach that. Mock phone calls, maybe even set up a mock phone call with somebody with a problem and see how their demeanor is on those calls. We've actually Cheryl put together, it's like a test, basically. But looking at, so a lot of what we do, of course, is building out the different components of an individual course. And some of that is copy and paste. And as Cheryl said, we have very high standards of quality. So we like to catch all those little errors that maybe the subject matter experts or the reviewers missed along the way. So Cheryl will actually put in front of these folks, like a post test that has different errors in it, and ask them to, identify things that don't look right to them. And that'll give you a real sense of someone's attention to detail. And she also gave the rest of our team this, and several of us did not do so well. But it can give you, it's sort of, yeah, right. No, don't have to worry about that anymore. But it's much different than you ask someone, are you detail oriented, or tell me an experience where you exhibited good attention to detail. I mean, you can only get so much out of that, right? But really giving someone an exercise to go through, that can go a long way into getting to what you want to know. All right, I think we're maybe still over, but we caught up some. So discussion and questions. Yes, Elizabeth.
Can you go back a slide?
Yeah.
So have you done the job simulations, or are you just now starting because you have to go back to square one to try to hire somebody? But you've done the job simulations?
Yes, from the very beginning. I didn't have his approval at first, but yeah.
Forgiveness.
Yes.
And how did you, did you like it? Did it obviously help? You haven't hired anybody, or it didn't help?
Well, it has. We did have someone who did very good on the job simulation, as a matter of fact, who just left us in May. And it was a tough decision for her to leave us, but we have used it in the past and it has worked out, even to the point our HR person is like, well, hey, I think I want to use this for other positions that we're applying for. So I think it works. It helps. It helps me.
And it has screened people out too.
Like,
people we've liked in the interview have
Oh.
done poorly.
So one good example, I gave the young lady, set it down there, and I'll leave you so you can have your time. So I come back and she was on her phone. I was like, well, what is she doing on her phone? Well, she was looking for the answers to the questions. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, clearly she's not at the top of our list of candidates, right?
Like the medical question.
She was looking
she thought we wanted her to know
to answer the question. Because, you had your choices, ABC, it was written out just like a regular multiple choice questions. And she was looking, so we was like, no.
Was that ethical component?
Yes.
Are those the only 3 job simulations you do, or do you have others as well?
Yeah, those are all the ones that we do so far, but we might come up with some new ones. Who knows?
Yeah, one way to get some free labor. If you've got a good SOP, you could ask them to go through an SOP. That could be a literal job simulation that you ask them to do. Maybe that, or maybe it's actually testing a course. Depending on what skill set you're looking for. I think if you just look through, what are the responsibilities of this job going to be? What does that work look like? Is there something? You don't want these things to be terribly long, right? You're not going to sit them into a closed room and tell them they have 4 hours to complete their exercise. But something that's relatively quick that they can do, that's any job task. I think you could probably set up some sort of simulation around.
And then a follow-up, is, so you said that you were having problems finding people, right? And if you're going to go out to universities for the entry level, are you concerned then that it will just be an entry level for them? Like they're not invested in your association, and so they're going to only be there for a year before they move on, and then you have to go through this process again? Or
yeah, so Elizabeth,
there's that balance. Like you find that person that this is what they want to do, or they kind of have a passion in education, or the entry level just to fill the seat.
Yeah. So Elizabeth's question is, are we concerned that going after entry level might cause downstream turnover or poor retention because maybe it's not their long-term goal to be a CME or a LMS administrator? I think that's the kind of thing that you have to understand is going to happen, right? These, we're not going to pay this person enough that we should expect them to be in this role forever, right? Now, do we want to get, we're putting a time investment and going through this whole process to recruit them and hire them and putting a time process, resources to train them. We want to get return on investment, of course. So definitely that's one of the things that, we have questions in our interview guide that hit all those other areas, like experience with the LMS, experience in education, experience with CME, experience with healthcare. But we also ask about what their long-term ambitions are. What do they want to get out of the position? I think I would rather someone tell me that they want maybe 2 years of getting experience and this type of association, building some skills that maybe are transferable, looking for opportunities to move up within the organization. I'd rather hear that than someone that actually is fresh out of college that says, yes, I'm an LMS administrator for life. I mean,
2 good years is better than 5 bad ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so some of that, I think this is just a management thing throughout not just recruiting, but throughout, you need to always be touching base with people, understanding what their goals are, where they see opportunities to grow that maybe they're not taking advantage of today. So it's just an ongoing kind of management thing, I think. Scared that people will leave, yes, but it's a reality. And,
Are, but I was just wondering because you're going down to that just out of college thing.
Yep.
Level, so.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What's the name of your program?
The name of our program?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Learning Central. Learning Central.
How
Yeah.
did you come up with that?
It's another fine name.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. Yeah. We got pretty good SEO, or maybe it's just my instance of Google Chrome that has good SEO for this, but Learning Central has pretty good SEO for APA. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.